I'm your friendly neighborhood geriatrician, and I left clinical practice about 12 years ago after teaching medical school for 10 years, running a community health systems geriatrics program, and then going into solo private practice in geriatrics, which was my best and most comfortable, wonderful achievement in my entire professional life. In that time, I had 80% Medicare, and I was able to stop doing inpatient medicine in year 6 because I never had anybody in the hospital. I was so aggressive with care management, and that was just really a wonderful experience. Then I spent the end of my career as a managed care medical director, trying to get them to understand that you can do well and do good. That didn't work, so I quit. And when I retired, I immediately published 4 books, including To Survive Caregiving, A Daughter's Experience, A Doctor's Advice, which took the information I got from taking care of my mother for 10 years while I was an academic geriatrician and raising 2 kids. And I'm just very happy that it won first prize in the Writer's Digest Awards for the best self-published book, nonfiction, in the inspirational self-help category. So I'm really happy about that. So my practice and my writing are the biggest accomplishments of my life, other than my kids. And I just have loved every minute of it. I've reinvented myself several times, from an academician to an entrepreneur to an employed physician to a managed care medical director, and now a writer. And what I also am doing now is going around the country talking to professionals about how to serve seniors successfully, and talking to seniors about how to be a silver fox, how to live out loud and age excellently, and to talk to community service workers and clergy about how to put a support system around the older people and the caregivers that they encounter. I went into geriatrics because I grew up very close to 3 of my 4 grandparents. And even though I lost the last one in my 20s, they were a major joy in my life. And because of working with them and living with them and loving with them and playing with them, I understood that old people were not scary. In fact, they protect you from your parents. What made me decide to teach geriatrics was when I was in a medical residency. There was a 78-year-old Latino gentleman who was taking care of his grandchildren, taking care of the house, and keeping his daughter and son-in-law in the workforce. And he got back pain so badly that he could not lift his grandchildren. And when I x-rayed him, there was a spot on his spine. And he was from Puerto Rico originally. And it could have been TB or it could have been a tumor. I couldn't get anybody to biopsy it to tell me what it was. And the reason that the surgeons and the interventional radiologists and orthopedists and neurosurgeons, none of them wanted to biopsy it because of the date he came on the planet. And it was really important because if it was a tumor and I treated it with antibiotics like TB, he was going to die. And if it was TB and I radiated it like a tumor, he was going to die. So it was very important for me to work on the ageism, not only of the primary care physicians that I was training, but all subspecialists that work with seniors. And that's why I decided to do a geriatrics fellowship at UCLA. I took care of my mother for 10 years. And she created me. I would not be me if Beatrice Woodson had not been my mother. She advocated for us so avidly as we were growing up. My mother didn't graduate from high school, but I heard her tell a principal, "You may have a PhD, but I'm MOM." So when she started to not be the woman who raised me, in fact, when she started asking permission to interfere in my life, is when I had the first neuropsych testing. That's when I became a caregiver. And aging while Black is not easy. You know, when it trinkles on other people, it deluges on us. So we were in a community that had changed. And the crack addicts came in and took all the food out of my mother's house once. And that's when I moved her to Chicago with me. The challenges I faced in caregiving were that Dr. Woodson knew exactly what to do. I was director of the Geriatrics Fellowship Program at the University of Chicago when I diagnosed my mother myself. So nobody knew how to work the system better than me. But Cheryl was inside there, broken, because this was not the woman who raised me. And so trying to handle the doctor-daughter piece was very important. 7 years into a 10-year caregiving relationship, my mother looked at me and said, "Do I know you?" That day, my MD went out. All my fellowship training went out. It didn't help me at all. I felt like I was a little kid that my mother had left on the curb somewhere and walked away. And on that day, I took her wedding rings and turned them into this necklace that I wear all the time. So she's with me all the time. But that was the most devastating, understanding that there's two people inside of a caregiver. There's the one who's handling all the logistics, and then there's the person who loves that person, who relied on that person, got advice from that person. And you have to manage that pain while you're being an effective caregiver. I developed the 5 keys to caregiver survival, and the 5th one is put your mask on first. You have to take care of yourself or you're no good to them. And I had a 58-year-old caregiver drop dead and leave 2 80-year-old people here. She knew to the last pill when her mom's prescriptions need to be refilled, but she hadn't had her blood pressure checked. She didn't know she was diabetic. And it looked like that heart attack came out of nowhere, but it actually didn't, because she did not take care of her mother's number one resource. She didn't take care of her mother's caregiver. My work is about training people to look at people as people, not as an age, not as a color, not as a gender, but what does this person in front of you need? We're strong, we're powerful. We wouldn't be here if we weren't. We're creative, and we can be the cavalry that we're waiting for.